DJELO LLC.
Yeah, this one's gonna be quite a bit more. Matt, yeah, Matt's here. So I'm gonna have Matt talk in just a minute, and this just is what it is. So what I've made, I did not make enough copies of this. I'm gonna present that to the president. I did make enough copies of the second one. So this is the original, it's the one that I'm handing you, the original conditional use permit handed out to Spanky. That second one was the one for Happy Hours, which is who Matt and Karen Allen purchased the bar from. So by way of history and background on why we're having this conversation, I came to work for the village in 2017, late 2017, about the time this conditional use permit was issued. And if you read through it, you'll see that it says, hey, type of structure, number of employees, 4 to 8. And then if you go back and look at types of activities, the board pre-Zeke, during Rebecca Ewald's tenure, put a number of conditions via a conditional use permit on this property. So one of the conditions, the fencing needed to be replaced. They were restricted to the types of music that could take place. So outdoor music entertainment not to exceed 12 times a year total. They did indicate in the permit that they would put up new signage, maintain an upper 2-bedroom rental unit. The basement would be used for storage of alcohol, food, goods, and whatnot. And then there were serving areas that were denoted, largely interior to the building. The biggest thing is that parking was to take place on site. And so I had a request from Trustee Nash back in 2017 to look at how we could get rid of this particular zoning designation. And it just so happened at the time that we were going through an overall comprehensive plan process that allowed us to change both the comp map and the zoning map at the same time without running into the legal hang-up of what's known as spot zoning. So there were a number of properties that had modern consistent uses that the zoning did not match up to the use. Neither they were able to use it via conditional use permit or just by virtue of the fact that they had begun the use prior to the village having specific zoning in place. So we did make those changes in 2018 when we adopted the master plan and the zoning map update. And so the property that everybody thinks of as the old Spanky's, 485 South Jefferson, presently has a full commercial zoning. And what does that mean? It means that outdoor entertainment can take place on the property 365 days of the year, with the exception of the time period that the state precludes serving of alcohol on the property. It means that parking can take place per our regular zoning code, which means that use of the church parking lot was acceptable. It meant that off-street parking was acceptable. It meant that parking in the industrial park, which was done during Spanky Palooza, was acceptable, because that's a code that applies to the village as a whole, not just to that one property. So the property is under contract to be sold, and I would not be doing my job if I didn't bring these things to your attention, even though I'm just upfront going to tell you this is a difficult conversation for me to have. Time went by, and the village received complaints about Spanky Palooza in particular, but there were also other complaints from area residents. The complaints ranged from urination in residential properties on their property, to noise complaints, to parking complaints, to traffic complaints around comings and goings, or people moving into their cars at bar close. I would tell you personally, I think Matt was a fantastic operator. I think anytime you have a bar anywhere near a residential neighborhood, you're going to run into just challenges that come up. And for many of the residents that complained, they moved in after Matt was already operating there for some years, or after Happy Hours had been there prior to that. So as we're talking about potentially issuing an alcohol license for a new operator on this property, there are a number of conflicts that I want to make sure the public understands is there, and that is that right now the property is zoned general commercial. The property is eligible to receive an alcohol license. The property, unless there's a change in parking no parking posting. They'll be able to park on the street just as they did when Matt was operating the business. And they'll be able to park in the church parking lot should the church grant that as a permission. We won't have any enforcement capacity on the church lot. So if cars go and park on the church lot, it'll be up to the church to enforce that privately and bring in a tow truck privately to remove those vehicles privately. It'll have nothing to do with the village. It'll be between two property owners. If outdoor entertainment takes place, we will have the tool of our present noise ordinance, which effectively will limit the decibel reading to an amount that's pretty much in line with what Matt played. In other words, we have a pretty liberal zoning code when it comes to noises. That's 75 decibels at the lot line. To put that in perspective, I'm probably talking somewhere around 65, 68 dB right now. It's not a problem to have amplified outdoor music, as some of you that have been to local bars and restaurants understand, that isn't in violation. It takes a pretty egregious amount of noise to be in violation. So you might ask, well, what's the penalty? And the answer is it's a standard zoning penalty. We essentially meet with the operator and say, hey, you're in violation. We'd ask you to get back into compliance. And first offense is we give them a $25 citation. That's after we give them the talking to. So as Matt was able to grow the traffic volume of his business and grow out the business, one of the things that we discussed at the staff level and at the board level was providing some pretty hefty financial incentive to move Spanky's from its present location out to Highway 36 where there wouldn't be conflicts with neighbors. So that's now been done and the operation's going well. Matt put the property up on the market in order to sell it. I think from conversations we've had, he looked for anybody but a bar operator to go into that place, and Matt nodded your head, just haven't been successful finding anybody but a bar operator to go in there. And here we are talking about issuing a full alcohol license to a fully zoned and by right eligible for use business property that will leave the village with no real recourse for enforcement on negative externalities that would come from that bar. So parking that takes place outside of what is on the street directly, right? So we could post the street, no parking. We're really not gonna have a say in it. We can find the owner to be in violation and bring them back in violation of chapter 125 upon sworn testimony of two of our officers. Find that, yes, the business owner, this new one, potentially did entice customers to park in areas they weren't supposed to, and then if this body finding that to be valid would have no choice under chapter 125, acting in a quasi-judicial capacity to revoke said alcohol license for a minimum period of 30 days. You all went through that previously with Dizzy's, and also with what is now Crazy Train with Rail Stop. If there's a second violation, you have no choice under chapter 125 but to revoke their license in totality. So they no longer are operating. Both of those are really heavy things to use within the business community. I'm not sure that that's the direction we want to go. Luckily, I don't get to make that decision. You guys do in terms of what are we going to do tonight. So I've done my job.
How many licenses do we have left?
2. After, assuming you issue this one, 2.
So if Palmer's get theirs and this one gets theirs, we're out.
You still have 2. 2 beyond those 2.
Okay.
One is it's called a quota license. That's what you all committed to the Palmers. That's a $300 license. The second one is a reserve license. That's a $10,000 minimum issue price license. That's the one that's being applied for with the buyer from the old Spanky's.
We still have one
You
left for.
You have 2 more reserves
Okay.
after that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just to piggyback on Trustee Ward, am I accurate in saying when we hit 6,000 in population, we'd be granted another one?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is. We've got a spreadsheet.
Every 500?
It's every 500,
Yeah,
and
there's
we're fairly close.
Yeah.
Okay, so with some of the growth that is happening currently, we're probably not ultra far off from obtaining another one,
Right, and that would be another reserve.
Okay, thank you.
I forgot one major point of everything I was just articulating about. There's kind of a way to deal with all of this, but it would be on Matt to deal with it, and that's to go back and request rezoning back to a single family and then request conditional use. So that giant piece that I left off, and I apologize for that. So what does a conditional use do? It gives the village all of the enforcement authority that it needs to deal with parking, to deal with music, to deal with all those things after the fact. Right now, we don't have that because it's zone, general business and they get to do those things by right.
Conditional use was what we're looking at here.
That's what it was originally.
What it was originally. Usually conditional use, being at the plan commission, that's generally what's issued. So with conditional use, we can, just that, we can issue, we can only have so many parking spots, so many this, so many that, correct?
So much outdoor entertainment, unamplified outdoor entertainment, so many times a year. I mean, the last one specified they could only do outdoor entertainment 12 times a year
And
for that property.
And without that, which is the way it's zoned now, we
So
don't have it, just to be clear.
The difference, and I'll talk about things that Matt has said he's put in place. There's, as I understand it, some deed restrictions that have been placed on the property that do not allow for outdoor entertainment. The problem with that is the village has zero enforcement capacity over that whatsoever, and it then becomes a private party lawsuit between Matt and the buyer, which, quite frankly, Matt would probably have to come up with 40 to 60K to go to trial with it and then prove damages. So it's a pretty tall ask.
Trustee Eber.
Refresh my memory, but when this all went down in the past, I thought we were gonna, that once we moved Spanky's over to 36, that was no longer gonna be a bar. I remember having this conversation more than once in this chamber. And is it on us because we never changed the zoning laws?
We would revisit zoning for this particular issue in 2028 when we update the map comprehensively and the master plan comprehensively. So we wouldn't ordinarily go back and redo this for a single property, in part because that would be in violation of state statute.
But that was, I mean, that
Yes,
was.
that was the plan.
That was the plan. And I don't wanna stick Matt with property
Nope.
that he can't sell, but
Right.
my understanding was, once that was vacant, that was gonna turn back into a normal property.
I think there is a path to get an alcohol license there for Matt, so that Matt can sell the property, and I think that path is a conditional use permit. So, the board tonight, and just all the way around, you guys could say, hey, we're gonna issue the alcohol license, and it will be what it will be, which is there will be no recourse from the village on whatever happens on the other side of that, other than revoking the license.
Adam?
I think,
Okay, here we are, we find ourselves, we've got two properties that we're talking about tonight, and, everything that you bring up, Zeke, is valid. However, the property is zoned commercial as it sits right now. Matt has built his new location, doing a great job, great operator, and has a buyer that is going to come in and then lease it to
An operator.
which are Waterford residents, great people. Matter of fact, I'll say it, Dan and Aaron Owens are here tonight. Aaron has been with me managing Crazy Train for 6 years. They will be a great addition to the community, another business that will give back. I would like to make a motion to not only issue the license, but
Is that a present employee?
keep the property zoned commercial the way it is right now. That's my motion.
are we allowed to have a discussion before a second, or where are we gonna have
You
discussion?
need a
after
second.
After a second.
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 Okay, almost a second, now we're discussion.
Okay,
This is not the time.
I know, I just looking for clarification, I just wanna, so Andy, I think, you're absolutely right that this body has had conversations about what was gonna happen with that property. We've also had, and correct me if I'm wrong, many conversations on other properties that are continuing to sit vacant, the firehouse. So I think, this is a good example of, when the Palmers first came here and were asking for the license that was, $300. There was a lot of discussion on, we were holding that one for the potential of the firehouse and who's gonna come into that, whether that be 60 days or 60 years. So, it only made sense to grant the Palmers the $300 one because they were the ones stepping up to do something in the community. Again, local people. So, I really agree with a lot of things Troy is saying, that there were local individuals, willing to invest in the community. I feel confident with two reserves still sitting there and inching closer to a third. I've also, gotten over the years to take, Matt Allen at his word, so if Matt Allen is feeling comfortable with this, I think we should all feel comfortable with this. And some of the things you said, Zeke, I am glad you brought them to our attention, and, you know, if our recourse is a 30-day revoke first issuance and then permanently on the second, I really kind of think that's all the village needs to be involved in when it comes to this, for me.
It seems to be, I don't wanna interrupt you,
Oh.
it seems like it'd be pretty powerful that if they're not a good player here, we've got the tools to make sure that they don't have liquor license. You know, I don't think we can get any additional until 2028, right? So
Yeah,
I think we have enough teeth right here to make sure that the new operators would take care of it, and that's my opinion.
I'm finished? Yeah,
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, to piggyback on what Andy said, is I've heard the complaints from the neighbors. We've sat here and worked with them, as far as the noise, and that's why we're so happy to move Spanky's to when it was a little neighborhood bar, it was fine. But once Matt did a great job and built it up and built his business, it was no longer a little neighborhood bar. And not to mention the condos got developed closer, and those new owners really didn't appreciate that, if you remember Zeke and stuff. And I've heard nothing but complaints about parking on the street. I guess minimal if we're gonna issue this, and I'm all for local businesses, is at least we need to make no parking on that road. Anybody drives by there, that's the very least we need to be. It's dangerous. That's teeth that we do have, and a problem that we can solve before it starts back up again.
Certainly glad to hear all the discussion. I don't feel any differently than what Troy stated or Adam stated or Pat stated. My job is sometimes to present unpleasant truths. We need more opportunities for business in this community. I think it will be a good move. At the same time, it also gives the board a very public way to have a conversation with the new operator to say, they're not gonna have any choice but to take your license for 30 days when we get a written complaint. That's what will drive that, so it's gonna be on you guys to maintain it. Yes, ma'am?
What?
Can I speak? I'm Aaron Owen. So on the road there in front of, 45 Jefferson, there is no parking on the one side of the street already. If you take no parking on the other side of the street, all I'm gonna have is the 8 or 10, 12 stalls in the lot, and that's not much. If I don't get any agreement with the church, how am I gonna make any money in the business?
Aaron, I think that's part of the challenge. What was in the original conditional use permit is that
But
all,
there's been no, it's been parking on the side of the street since
I-
forever.
again, what was in the
It's just-
original
it's
conditional use
one side
permit
is no
was
parking, I
no street
totally
parking.
understand, but if there's, on both sides, yeah, cut one side off, which already is. But there's parking on Main Street.
There was
there's on
one
both sides.
fatality that took place in that location
Maybe we
some
could
years
pick just a
ago.
little area where you don't park past this point, you know, maybe past the driveways of the church, or get a little bit of street
There's
parking.
no shoulders to that road either.
I guess we really need to speed up getting that road done and maybe do some stuff addressing appropriate parking.
I think that's coming up in 2027,
Good.
2028. I would recommend that you refer the parking issue to your DPW committee for deliberation, and not necessarily make that as a decision tonight. You can do that separate from the
Well, I would-
alcohol license.
I would hate to go through this process and then issue the liquor license to them and everything goes through, the property sells, Dan and Aaron go in with the way that the parking is right now, and then after this transaction goes down, change it on them, and that's not right.
So,
I
interior.
think we've gotta make a decision tonight if we're gonna allow
Yeah.
parking on, before their deal goes down, allow parking on one side of the street, or, and one of the other things I'd like to say is the business model that Dan and Aaron, at least what I think, It's not gonna be another Spanky's, what Matt and Karen
That's
built
what I
there.
was just gonna say, it's not gonna be another Spanky Palooza, I'm not interested in doing another giant party on the weekends and bands outside every weekend.
So, one of the things I'm gonna bring up is right now, we're having a lot of specific conversation about Dan and Aaron, which is great, they're local folks. What happens when Dan and Aaron wanna sell it? Because that day is gonna come, and Dan and Aaron are gonna wanna exit, and somebody else is gonna be the operator, and they may have a different idea about what's gonna go on there. And you'll
Well,
have
then
another
we can have the
opportunity
same
then.
conversation now.
You'll have another opportunity then
Yeah.
to discuss what you're gonna
Absolutely.
do. There are site-specific considerations to that lot itself, that parking could be amended. It would mean investment on their part to obtain the spaces that the public owns and the public maintains, specific to the property. So, you know, if the concern is more parking, then I would tell you that reconfiguration of the site is one of the things to look at. Matt optimized the space for pedestrians, right? So it was try to push the parking anywhere but the lot itself, maximize that backyard area for pedestrians. And quite frankly, there are things that we turn the other eye on, like porta potties being on place for, you know, most of the season. You know, propane tanks that were stored above ground, like lots of stuff that in order to get Matt up and going with the idea, based on a lot of conversation, that there'd be a much bigger investment coming later on down the road and that this place never would be a bar again. That all moved ahead, and we're back here tonight talking about it being a bar again, and just,
Well, to Adam's point earlier, we can do nothing and let it sit and have another fire department 8 years from here of another vacant property.
I'm not recommending to issue the license. I think that it'll be a good addition to the community from a business standpoint. I'm saying that there warrants some additional conversation around the negative externalities that come from such an operation. So, let me give you some thoughts, right? You guys could enact an overlay district that's a no outdoor entertainment overlay district. If you don't wanna go back to the conditional use process, and you could draw a bubble all the way around that property that says, hey, we're not gonna do outdoor entertainment, but then that's gonna handcuff Aaron and Dan from doing acoustic music or anything else they might wanna do. Our ability to regulate sucks. It's heavy-handed, and it's obtuse, and it's overreaching. But when the neighbors complain, and Don and I are the ones that have fielded the complaints for the last 7 years, and it's each and every year.
Biggest issue.
We've heard about parking on the street, and we've heard about music.
Andy?
And I agree with both of you guys. I mean, thank you for the investment in Waterford, thank you, Matt. I mean, I wanna separate that right now though. So we're going back on what we had a vision for of basically exiting, not having a bar there. I mean, that's what we talked about. That's what we talked about, now we're putting ourselves in this situation. So I'm just kind of, I want people to succeed, I want you to have a bar, trust me, this is just principle. We talked about phasing that out, and now we're putting ourselves in the position to contradict ourselves. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, I want you guys to have business, don't get me wrong, I'm just talking principle here. We're putting ourselves in this position. So, and we kind of put in our position to based on the zoning, they can do it anyways, I mean, we can get a lawsuit. So I mean, based on that, I'm gonna vote for it, but I just wanna challenge the board here. What are we doing to ourselves? We're contradicting what we set forth
Andy?
for future growth.
You are not going to get a lawsuit for not issuing the
Well,
alcohol
based
license.
on, well,
in
no, I'm
Wisconsin.
talking about based off zoning.
No.
Based off what you've told me in the past.
Zoning, they have a right to use it
Yes.
as a bar. They are not entitled, nor is any other property owner in Wisconsin in any way, any type of an alcohol license. Nor are existing owners entitled by right to sell a license along with the business.
Yeah, I get that, but,
Just wanna make sure, it's a totally separate thing.
I mean, I wanna vote for them,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, we're setting ourselves up to contradict ourselves. We said we weren't gonna do this, and now we are. But I want you guys to succeed, but why do we do this to ourselves? And I'll just leave it at that.
Trustee Justin?
Okay, so to kind of answer your question, for me, I definitely believe in being principled, and I feel this board, most of the time, is principled on the things that we try to approach. I also am trying to live and sit with a vote on this board with a little bit of fluidity, that economies change, markets change,
The world
sure we-
changes.
Yes, a lot of things change, and a lot of conversations, this is gonna be a different property, but, the new development by Newman, Trailside Landing. A lot of individuals that live in the town in that area have spoken with me about, explain more why you were good with that development. So I did. And I'm coming back to this common conclusion that, we all are entitled to buy and purchase any of these properties or any of this land. If we wanted the Gray property to never be more than a farm, one of us should open our checkbook and buy them, so we can watch the cows roam and the grass grow and the sunset. Same with the property that Matt and Karen own. If nothing else is transpiring there, and we had this set vision, and somebody new comes along, I'm just trying to be fluid to the conversation and to what they wanna do. Nobody on this board or nobody else opened their checkbook and bought that property and said, I wanna buy this and tear this down, so this is a safe corner and the people in the condos aren't upset. I know that's kind of harsh and rash, but that's just how I'm starting to see a lot more as I see this. If we have people that want to invest, like we've talked many times, how much longer is the firehouse gonna sit empty? It could sit another 10 years. I hope not either, but we have somebody here and now willing to open their checkbook, willing to attempt to do something. I'm going back to what Pat said, and this will be where I kind of wrap up for it, is, to me, that's teeth in the game, that if this board has the ability to revoke after 30 days, or then permanently, I would think the individuals, whoever they are, would want to make sure they're doing everything they can to not make that
I
happen.
mean, and I just think, I'm sure I brought up the idea about the parking, when we're redoing Jefferson, we can't encumber that project with parking spots there. This is gonna be, there's no guarantee when Jefferson gets redone, we don't know what it's gonna look like, where it's gonna be, if there's gonna be parking, so, if we're happy to have it right now, but, I can't guarantee, what our engineer's gonna say. And it's gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain those parking spots down the line, but remember, this project has not been approved yet. But we're looking towards 2027 possibly to redo all of Jefferson. So, I don't know how it's gonna impact your parking, I don't know how it's gonna impact anything, but, we can't guarantee you spots based on that. Because we can't tell engineers you're gonna have to, go around this, we don't know what it's gonna look like. I mean, very well, there should be parking spots there, but, I just wouldn't feel comfortable in that scenario, potentially adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to accommodate parking there. I don't know what it's gonna look like, I don't know if it's gonna happen, I just wanted to put that up there.
I'd like to amend my, my motion, to approval of, the liquor license for DJELO LLC, leaving the property zoned commercial the way it is and allow parking on the north side of Jefferson only. Right now it's posted no parking on the south side, correct? So, parking available, the way it is right now. And that is my motion.
I can't second that just because I don't know what the Jefferson project's gonna be. I mean, right now I'd be happy to do that, but I know what's gonna happen down the line with Jefferson, the Jefferson.
Well, we could look at the parking.
Troy, could I offer an in-between?
What's
This is
that?
what I was gonna say, let's, looking at an in-between, one, we do have engineering that's gonna look at all of it.
We can look at the parking once that project goes into place for the redoing of
Can't
Jefferson.
guarantee it.
What I was gonna offer as a suggestion on your motion is, amend it to re-examine this in fall of 2025, right? And if it is an issue, then we can address it. If it's not an issue, we don't have to address it.
So they would have available parking on the
Let's
around the
just
north.
leave it, let's just leave it until fall. We'll bring it back in, say, October, after they've had a whole operating summer, right, to really see what's going on. And if it's an issue, we'll bring it back. If it's not, then it's just not an issue.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. We're, first of all, are we at the original motion?